Well, one of the hottest topics people are discussing about on Weibo today is once again the Diaoyu or Senkaku Islands. Now, if you don't really pay attention to the news in the Far East, the Diaoyu Islands, or Senkaku Islands as they're known in Japan, is a rather jaggedy piece of rock sticking out of the South China Sea. Let's check out some pictures of it. And as you can see, it's not a very large island and not particularly beautiful either. Now, so far, Japan and China both believe the rock belongs to them, and this issue has been in contention for decades. Now, previously, the spokesperson for the United States Department of State, Victoria Nuland, said that America does not take sides as to who the island belongs to. However, if China attacks the island and try to take it over, the U.S. will be obligated to intervene since the U.S. and Japan have a treaty where it states that the U.S. will protect Japanese territory. Now, many Weibo users found faults in that logic, and the Chinese reporter called her out on it, and the resulting video of Nuland on the spot became an instant hit on Weibo. Let's take a look.
But on the other hand, you said it's covered by the treaty, which only protects Japanese territories.
But this is because the Senkakus have been under the administrative control of the government of Japan since they were returned as part of the reversion of Okinawa since 1972.
Let me rephrase my question. Do you regard the islands as Japanese territory?
Again, we don't take a position on the islands, but we do.
Now, that reporter had his 15 minutes, that's for sure. But now things have become more official as the U.S. Senate approved an amendment last Thursday to acknowledge application of the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty to the Diaoyu Islands. Now, China's state media has lashed back, with the People's Daily claiming that the U.S.'s move on the Diaoyu Islands will backfire against itself, and that a weakening of the Sino-Japanese relations will lead to a slower recovery in America. But what about the average Chinese internet user? What do they think of the Senate's amendment? Let's take a look.
Since the U.S. claims that they would take a neutral position on the Diaoyu Islands issue, then they shouldn't consider the Diaoyu Islands as part of Japanese territory. Certainly, the Diaoyu Islands should not be part of the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty. How can the U.S. explain this? I think what's most important is still the attitude Obama would take on this issue. Even if the U.S. approves the measure, I don't think it would be a big difference on the current situation, but the amendment is quite insulting to China.
Now, many Weibo users believe that the Japanese government has been lobbying for American protection for quite some time. Now, the measure was interpreted by Japan's Kyodo News as, and I quote, intended to keep China's moves of asserting its claims in check. Now, Sino-Japanese relations is now at an all-time low since the end of the Second World War. There has been rallies where thousands of people marched down the streets carrying anti-Japanese banners in the earlier weeks following Japan's announcement of nationalizing the islands. While, according to a Yahoo News article, a Japanese survey showed that Japanese people who feels an affinity to China has dropped 16.5% from a year ago to an all-time low of only 4.8%. Now, many Chinese Weibo users feel that having America intervene in the dispute will not benefit Japan. And here's what they had to say.
If Japan is thinking dragging the U.S. into this issue would be to their benefit, then they would be making a huge mistake. I think it is all about the U.S.'s return to the Asia-Pacific region strategy. What the U.S. really wants to do is control the whole East Asia region. Japan is only the first step.
Well, it seems Weibo users are also quite finicky. Now, they are not happy with the U.S. because they believe this is none of their business. They're not happy with Japan either, since the vast majority of Weibo users feel wholeheartedly that China has a historical claim to the islands. They are also not happy with China, with some commenters pointing out that the British would never be so soft if they felt that their sovereignty was being threatened. They would assert their claim like they did with the Falkland Islands, that none of the large countries like the US and Russia would hesitate in protecting their own territory. And here's what some of them believe China should do about the situation.
I think this is an American strategy with the aim to contain China. If necessary, I think China should sanction against the U.S. I think America wouldn't dare do this if China were stronger.
Who knows? Maybe that's exactly what China is doing with the purchase of the country's first aircraft carrier. Or perhaps, like a previous Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping once said, the issue of the Diaoyu Islands might be resolved through the wisdom of future generations.